What's up, everybody? Weekly Q&A. Now, you guys are impressed. I'm wearing a t-shirt. You get to see my huge muscles. Try not to be too impressed. Um, Quickly, just want to float out an offer for you guys. For those of you guys who are getting leads for people and they're telling you they're all bad leads. Got some something that's kind of amazing that I've done for years, which is using referrals because they can actually close referrals. You know, you can get into a situation where you argue with a client and try and tell them they're all good leads and that they're terrible at the phone, which is usually true, or you can just send them leads they can close. We've got a campaign that you can generate usually 5 figures for a client. If they've been in business 5 years, then you got at least 5 figures of referrals sitting ready to go right now today. Couple of emails, you got it. So if you're interested in having that built for you and for your clients, give a brother a holler. So let's get into the Q&A. We won't keep the offer short. So this is a question posed to me privately by Aaron, but I thought you guys would really all benefit from it. He says, knowing what you know now, how would you start your agency as if you're a newbie, like you're in my shoes? What niche? What service? What pricing? The low-hanging fruit with your 1 to 3 sentence first date offer. What would you avoid? What would be your business plan? Looking for a model to model. Um, Firstly, Aaron, that's a fucking great question because one of the simplest things you can do to save yourself shitloads of time in this game is to model those who are already having success. Like I tried this many years figuring out this all the hard way. Like the first 7 years of my agency were like really hard. And the biggest reason was because I was trying to figure out everything brand new. And partly because there wasn't really an online marketing agency world like there is now, but partly because I was just stupid. And so your question is a good one. Now, let me answer those one by one because there's a few things. Now, knowing what you know now, how would you start your agency as if you're a newbie in my shoes? You know, Aaron, actually, I probably restart my agency like every 3 to 4 years. Knowing what I know, I realize that there's better ways of doing it. And so I'm actually doing two different agencies right now. I don't normally necessarily talk about my whole business a lot because I don't like to brag about money and screenshots. I'm not one of those dudes. Um, but let me tell you something. So one of the things that I'm doing right now is called a Beyond agency, and it's where I basically help them multiply their back end. And I've reached a point now where I'm going after the people who most inspire me. So like I've got a short list of people that I'm sending direct mail to, recruiting in this agency. And most people don't realize this, but you can go from like with a Beyond agency, you can go from like zero to like 30K, 40K a month, sometimes with just one client, 20K, 10K, 4K, 4D. Um, because you get a share of the profits. And I learned this the hard way. So I remember actually the first time I actually had a really big client success, it was a plastic surgeon in Dallas. And I remember him asking me to call him. And I was kind of intimidated. I said, thank you. And said, hey, thank you for taking some time speaking to little old me. And he said to me, are you kidding me? You're more important than my office manager. Whatever you're doing in Google has tripled our practice. They call every day and say, we found you in the Google. And I really realized how powerful it was, and it made me realize that I was selling myself way too cheap at $500 a month, which is what I was charging at that point in time, like 2008, 2009, something like that, which I was happy to get. But when you realize, like, when it really, really works, you're almost always undercharging for a retainer. So Beyond Agency works for a share of the profits. So I'll give you a few of the people I'm actually targeting right now. I've written some letters to Robert Kiyosaki. I don't know if you guys know the Rich Dad Poor Dad guy. I'm going after Joe Dispenza, big fan of him. So there's a couple other people like that, but big names. You can always do this with like big authors. Often they have these big audiences and big people to market, and they don't have a second thing or a third thing or a fourth thing to sell them. And so how I approach them is actually usually with some kind of add-on for their direct mail, because I've learned from experience that it's way easier to sell an add-on than a mo beta. So say for example, if they're running Google AdWords, and I try and say I can do the AdWords better than you, well, that's a big decision, right? They got to switch companies, they got to test me out. They've heard those kind of claims before. But if I say, hey, this works with your Google AdWords. It's an add-on to what you guys are doing. If that's working, send out some mail with it. So there's a very strategic reason I use the direct mail as my opening, because I know it's an add-on and I know it's an easy yes, and it's in the trash can as far as assets go. If you've read my book, you know what I mean about trash can assets. The second agency I'm doing, and I wasn't really planning on this, actually, just in our coaching program, um, one of the guys works with lawyers, and I have a lot of connections in the lawyer space, so I got him some intellectual property for motorcycle cases, basically like working campaigns, ads, targeting, so you don't have to figure it out. He can just lease it, throw it in for his clients. And somebody reached out to this guy and asked him if he could do that, and I've started to offer motorcycle cases. I have a whole running campaign, and now I've decided to put some mail to it and actually target some people. So I'm probably going to build that to, I'm thinking probably like 30, 40,000 a month. I think that's enough for what I'm doing. That I don't want to build like necessarily like a full-on agency just with those, but having like, I don't know, 10 to 20 clients. Now I don't normally do front end stuff, but I don't have to do any figuring out in this case. So that's the reason. Now, for you asked what niche would you go after? My feelings are on a niche. Firstly, let me just open up a document I have on niche selection tool. A niche can be your vertical, like, so I work with dentists, doctors, lawyers, coaches, e-commerce, blah, blah, blah. Like, people immediately assume that. But it can also be like other things, like a niche can be your delivery vehicle. I'm the webinar guy, I'm the YouTube ads girl, I help people get clients through Instagram, I use books to get clients. It can be an affinity you share. People don't think about this one, but I help Christian entrepreneurs. I help online female coaches. I help cannabis businesses, right? Like, it can be that. It can also be the results you create. You know, I've created 8 webinars that made 100 grand, or I grew a 16 million a year carpet cleaning business. That can be your niche. It can be a micro problem. You know, I help coaches stop hearing I need to think about it on the phone, or I help you get your tracking codes installed, or I help you set up your Infusionsoft. So it's not just your vertical. Now, what I look for in a niche, probably more than anything, the first thing is, and this is really more about, say, me than someone else, but I look, is it going to be fun for me? Like, would I actually enjoy doing this? Because if it's not, then, you know, who cares about the money? Because if you're just going to make yourself miserable and you're going to build yourself a prison, at least it better be a fun prison. The second thing I look for is there like some kind of high-end thing I can specialize in? I would say as a minimum, like my cutoff personally, and this doesn't have to be yours, but is there like a $5,000 or higher product or service? Because I know it's going to make my life a lot easier if I'm running advertisements or doing things where 1 or 2 or 3 people can really change that business and make a big difference. So it puts less onus on me to have to do a whole lot. Now, as far as service, I always look for something that's an add-on to what they're doing. You can save yourself so much time and effort. If, like, you know, I see a lot of people take a course to say learn Google AdWords or learn Facebook ads, and I'm not saying you shouldn't learn those things, but what ends up happening is they already have a Facebook ads person, they already have an AdWords person if they've been doing this long enough, and so you got to convince them to change companies and do what I call a mo beta offer, which is a big decision. As where if you can provide some kind of add-on to those things, like a direct mail, hey, you're not even doing anything with your direct mail, I bet you it'll work even better with your Google AdWords, then you can take those things further. As far as what pricing, you know, I'd say typical is anywhere from like 1,000 to 3,000 a month, but your pricing is based on really more than anything what value you bring to the table, which is why I say the niche selection is so important. So in the one front end agency I am doing, we're specializing in motorcycle cases. The reason I do that is because they're anywhere from $25,000 to $80,000 a piece. So I don't really have to do that much, right? Like if you get a restaurant 3 clients a year, he's miserable with you. If you get 3 clients for the guy doing motorcycle cases, that's 200 grand. He thinks you're great. So that's how I choose my pricing, is based on the value you can bring, because your pricing is always like, you should be basically to any client money at a discount. And if you can do that, you can charge as much as you want. So when you want to get clients who are like $30,000, $40,000, I go there on the Beyond agency by doing it with clients who are basically have big followings, have big buyers list, and have run out of things to sell them and don't know where to go next. So you mentioned what's the low-hanging fruit with my 1 to 3 sentence first date. The direct mail is really it. That is my general way to go in, because I know that they're 9 times out of 10 not doing anything with it, and I know it's an add-on, and I know it's in the trash can. So that's how I almost always lead. It's not the only way to do it. The principle, like I said, is that it's an add-on and it's not something they're doing already, and it's a small decision and it works with what they're doing. Now, here's a big one. What would I avoid? Anything Me Too. Facebook ads like everybody else, AdWords like everybody else, SEO like everybody else. Like I wouldn't touch those with a 100-foot pole. You have so much competition. You have so much Me Too. Even if you offer those things, I would offer them as a second or a third thing. Because if you don't have a niche within those, you're going to have a really, really hard time selling it. Um, what would be my business plan? Now, I think about this differently than most, so I'm thinking about it like kind of 3 steps ahead. So one of the things I'm thinking about obviously is how do I get the clients, but then I'm also thinking as I do it, how do I systematize it? So I'll often make a video of how I send the mail campaigns and what I do, so that when I bring in virtual assistants, which I haven't done yet in this particular agency, but when I do, I have everything in place. It's all set up to go. It's easy. Um, and then I'm also thinking about how do I measure it and track it in performance, so that when I bring in a manager, we can like do that. So I'm thinking like 3 levels deep. In the beginning, you just want to think about getting somebody. You just want to get in front of people and make an offer. Everything else is totally unnecessary. Building a website, unnecessary. SEO, blogging, content, unnecessary. Take your offer, put it in 1 to 3 sentences, and put it in front of people. Everything else is secondary. So that's the closest I can give you for a model to model is I'm doing those 2 things. Is the agency where I work for a percentage of revenues all on their back end, so I help them multiply their customers, or I only do front end stuff if it's an add-on and if I already have something that's working that I don't have to reinvent. So that's what's working there. So long-winded answer, but I know that a lot of people will benefit from that. Victor, I'm running a free trial period for my first client. It's an e-commerce store. I set up their Facebook pixel and conversion events. Sorry, running off the screen on her website yesterday. She had no sales and no data tracking before, and not much tracking on brand socials. So I've got no data at all to work with. I've recommended she starts with $100 in ad spend. I may need to get 1 or 2 sales. I've got 2 options here. One, I spent $20 in video view campaigns to see who's watched 95% of video, make a lookalike audience, then set up $80 conversions ads campaign and target to look at like an audience. 2, spend the entire $100 on traffic ad campaigns, split test different interests, ad creators, offers, and email sequences. Yes, this is the reason why you don't work with a startup. I know I'm starting out, so it's good experience for me. What do you guys reckon, or any better idea? Now, Victor, I'm going to tell you something that's a little harsh, but everything you've told me here sounds like you're going to fail with this campaign. And it has nothing to do with you personally or your skill set. But it's an offer that's never been proven. They don't have any traction in social, right? So they're putting it in front of people right now, and people are saying, I don't want to buy this and I'm not interested in it. So, there's a very simple saying that says, it's hard to multiply zeros. And it sounds like right now you're trying to multiply zeros. So first of all, $100 is like peanuts as far as like testing campaign, right? So you're not going to be able to split test all the different things you think you're doing, not for $100. Split testing is what you do when you got like, $10,000 a month or 50 or 100,000, right? It's not what you do with $100. So I would take your best idea, whatever that is, and go all in on it, but be prepared to like expect that you're going to spend $100 and nothing's going to happen, because people have already started to demonstrate organically that they don't want this product, right? So the biggest thing is to choose your clients more carefully and choose people that you can multiply what's working for them. So here's an add-on that I've seen that like works really, really well. I have a friend who does email for e-commerce. So they make he has friends, so do I for that matter. They sell $100,000 a month or sometimes even a day in some kind of product, and they never follow up with people and sell them a second or a third or a fourth thing. And he shows up with the email and just helps them pick up some of the sales they're missing. That's one of the easiest things you can do. And you do that for a store that's already selling, right? It's an add-on to what they're doing rather than trying to multiply zeros, which is what you're doing. So the reason I would I'm just cautioning you against this, because what ends up happening is if you try a campaign and you try and sell a product that nobody wants and it doesn't work, you are the one who suffers in your like confidence and your trust in yourself. And what happens is it wasn't really that you lacked ability, you just chose the wrong client. And so what will happen is it gets harder and harder to sell the next one. Because you're not quite sure whether it's going to work. So one of the clearest things you can do is identify what would the person already need to bring to the table for me to make it work. And I always say it's easier to multiply what's working. So deal with people who already have things that are working, that have real businesses. There's a tendency to want to sell to people who need it, but do that as charity work. Don't do that as running your business. Okay, Joey, I struggle with the objection. I already have someone doing that, and or maybe in the future. Well, Joey, yeah, you have a mo better offer because if they're telling you I already have somebody doing that, they probably do, right? Like if you're saying I do Google AdWords and they have an AdWords person and they're happy with that AdWords person, even if you can increase it 10, 20, 30%, it's a hard time selling it. Now, you can get in the door and say, hey, let me run a little test campaign. I'll run it side by side. I'd be willing to bet you I can outperform them. But even that is a hard sell. Way, way easier just to sell an add-on to what's already doing that. So think about this, like we're doing Facebook ads and we're doing motorcycle cases. If they're running Facebook ads already, there's a 99% chance it's not for motorcycle cases. And so we can say, hey, keep running your Facebook ads. This adds on to it and helps you get motorcycle cases in addition to it, right? So think about how you can take that skill set and maybe niche down or find a way to add on, because otherwise you're going to be selling Mo Betta, and Mo Betta is fucking hard to sell, brother, especially in a recession where these people are cooped up in their house, meeting on Zoom, and everybody's stressed out about the economy and whatnot. So Mo Betta is an uphill battle. Alex, hey all, what's the best way to get clients without providing testimonials experience? Asking clients for £1,000 seems quite daunting, and why would a business give the money with no experience? Well, Alex, the bigger thing is, I'll tell you, is if you don't know what you're going to do for a client and how you're going to actually make them money, and you don't know what will happen after they say yes, it's actually more on you. I know in the beginning it seems like, oh, they don't trust me, but the reason they don't trust you is because you really don't know what you would do next. So for me, it's like I look at what would be my honest to goodness plan for this business, and you'd be amazed that I just closed a deal on the weekend, and a complete stranger reached out to me. I didn't know him. I sent him a little 5-minute video, and I said, here would be my plan for you. Nowhere in there did I mention my credentials or how long I've been doing this or how many people. I didn't show any case studies. All I said is, here is what I would do for you and why. And what you'll find is that those deals close because they know what you're going to do for them, and it's very clear and specific. So the bigger thing is figure out what you're going to do for those people that's going to be worth that money, and you'll find that the money's easy to ask for because it's not actually about experience. Experience is what they default to when they don't know you and they don't trust you and they don't believe in your plan, right? So like if you're selling SEO and they've been burned by 7 other SEO people, they're going to want to know more about you. But if you say, here's my plan, here's what I'm going to do, here's why I'm going to do it, here's what I expect, are you interested or not, and it's a real plan and it really has the possibility of working for them, they'll take it. It's really that simple. Elifia, does anyone consistently book 15 appointments per week? Elifia, I would say yes and no. I've definitely been like not just 15 appointments per week, but I've had our agency at points 15 a day. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing to get away from in that is thinking about people in terms of like transactions and volume, because that's the biggest way you'll always have to be selling, you'll always have to be grinding, and you'll never keep clients if that's the number you're most focused on. So I'm not saying you shouldn't book appointments, but my thing is like, who are you getting appointments with, right? Like if you just think about them all as this group of people. So like for example, the motorcycle campaign that I decided just on the weekend actually to scale up. I'm sending this out direct mail to very specific people. I'm sending less than 100 letters per week, and I don't want to have 15 appointments a week. I want to have like 3 with people who are already pre-sold and ready to buy it. So you definitely can do 15 appointments a week, but my question to you is why? Wouldn't you rather figure out who the buyers are? There's a tendency to think that all people are equal when you first get into this, and they're really not. You know, a lawyer, for example, spending $100,000 per month on Google AdWords is not the same as a guy who's never ran it before. So who are you getting the appointments with? That's my question. What kind of offer are you offering them? Slava, I had 150 visits to my blog post in the last 30 days, but 0 of those visitors became a lead. Is this normal? Or does this mean my blogs aren't good at converting visitors into leads? And how can I improve this situation? Slava, I know a lot of people will tell you 150 visits is not enough. I would tell you, if you can't convert like into signups, at least 10% of your traffic, at least, I would say probably 20 into like just opt-ins. So that sounds like what you're doing. So like, I'm talking like 15 to 30 visitors. Then whatever you're offering as your lead magnet, as your opt-in, or that offer is broken, and it is clearly broken. And I know people will tell you, oh, you need thousands more visitors. You don't. The best way to be able to have a big audience is to be able to monetize a small one. Because once you're making money off a small one, you can pay for a lot more traffic. So your offer to opt in is broken. So without specifics, I can't tell you what, but that's where you want to look. Robert, there's a lot of different SEO prices out there, so I'm interested to know, what do you actually give your customers for $300 to $500 a month SEO service and $500 to $1,000 SEO service? Robert, again, this comes down to two things. One is like, what kind of results can you get people? Because if you're generating a business, like once I found out, like when I mentioned the example earlier, that plastic surgeons generating, I don't know, a couple million a year in my SEO value, like suddenly 500 a month didn't seem like a big deal at that point. So I knew I should charge more. The second thing is there's actually a hidden thing in there, which is who you're selling it to makes a big difference, right? Because if their average client's going to be $10 or $20, or you're dealing with a plumber where they might get $100, your SEO price is going to be different than if you're dealing with a plastic surgeon who gets $25,000 per person. So the simplest way, if you want your price in SEO to go up, is not to do anything different and not to change your packages. Like that implies that the deliverables are what determines the price, but actually is the end value to them. And one of the biggest things you can do is just change who you do it for. So like I mentioned, within every niche, there's the higher end thing. They've almost always got something that's at least $5,000 or more that they don't generally offer that they should be. If you offer that, you'll get more for your SEO services, and you won't have to change a single deliverable. There's a group member here named Thomas, and one of the things we helped him do, he was charging $500 a month for like local SEO package, and he was selling it to all the like little small mom and pop shops. We just helped him change the package to more like affluent people and government packages and things like that. And he was suddenly getting over $100,000 in this pandemic per year. So it's like $10,000 a month per client. Same service, same deliverables, right? So the who changed. Jay, I need some help. My ad account has been restricted. I have a few client campaigns running. They seem to be still active, but I obviously can't change them. I have applied for a review and submitted my passport. Any advice on what I can do? I need to get back live ASAP. Jay, Facebook is hitting people hard. You're not the only one. I do have a template. If you send me a message, I will send you the template that works probably about 50% of the time to get your account back. But I would say two things. One is don't put all your eggs in the Facebook basket, because that's going to happen. And two is brace yourself, your clients on day one, that the possibility of getting their ad account banned exists. And if that happens, what you will do to set up a new one, because otherwise it's like, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. But if you just let them know, hey, Facebook's kind of a bitch right now with everybody, and it is possible. Obviously, I try to do everything, but they're just a little bit crazy, and you may lose your account. But if so, we'll just set up a new one. Clients won't consider that the end of the world. It only seems like the end of the world because now it's like it's unexpected, right? It's a sudden curveball. So that's the other thing. Don't put all your eggs in the Facebook basket, and yeah, let them know what might happen. Carl, does anyone else find it a bit counterintuitive for agencies to be asking their clients to create business manager accounts and ad accounts themselves, then adding yourself as admin? I don't like the idea of spending 3 months working for a client, putting in all the hard work to optimize and create them winning campaigns, and then having them the ability to say, thanks, we don't need you anymore, just removing you from their account and running my ads in-house. Carl, I know that sounds like a legitimate fear. In my experience, that if you're dealing with like brick and mortar people, there is a 0% chance of that happening because they do not have the time, and the cost of them doing it in-house is greater than the cost of paying you. So seriously, it's not going to happen, like less than 1% of the time. But even still, there's a deeper issue in there that says you're creating all this hard work, and after 3 months optimizing their campaigns and getting it working, most people make this mistake, Carl, and you're making it, which is once you eventually get it working, is that's the real gold. Is that's what you want to copy and paste to the next client and the next client and the next client. Like you shouldn't be reinventing the wheel and optimizing for 3 months with every new client. That tells me you're working way too fucking hard in your agency. And most people will tell you it's about getting clients, but to me, it's about developing the asset, which is the working campaigns, that I can then reuse and multiply over and over. In fact, one of the easiest ways you could multiply your money right now is if you have a campaign that's working for a client that's in that situation, just lease it to other people. Lease the intellectual property to other agencies who would be happy to pay for it so they don't have to spend 3 months figuring it out. So yeah, the business manager thing, it's easier because I've had it where Facebook bans, or like I had one client, like I had like 40 clients in one business manager, and one client didn't pay their ad bill of like, I don't know, $500, like a small amount or something. But Facebook then shut down 40 accounts. And I don't know if that's normal or not, but it happened to us. And I ended up having to personally pay the one client's account in order to re-enable the other 39. So that's part of the reason to have them set it up, is to avoid shit like that. But there's a deeper issue, which is like you're losing the most important battle, which is you got all this good IP that you're not using, intellectual property, the working campaigns. Ryan, what is the reason why the SEO of WordPress is far superior than any other platforms like Shopify, Wix, Squarespace, BigCommerce? Ryan, they were the first ones in it. They've been doing it longer, and there's more tools developed for it. You know, if Wix had gotten in it 10 years before, when I first got started in this, in the beginning, there really only was WordPress. Like there was no Shopify, there was no Wix, there was no Squarespace. So I'm old enough to remember when WordPress was the first one, and they got tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of users because they were the first ones. So they've just had longer to do it and a bigger community to develop it and more adoption. It's people don't realize that's why I'm so big on add-ons, because it's so hard to be second in any niche. It's so hard. Like Pepsi has a way harder job than Coke because Pepsi has to like convince people to switch, as where Coke just has to convince people to try something new and go, oh yeah, I like that, right? So once a store has agreed to start selling Coke, now Pepsi has to come in the door and convince them to switch. That's why like Mo-Betta offers are so much harder, because you're Pepsi when you're Mo-Betta, and when you come up with something new like WordPress, the first one in it, you're Coke. Coke is a way easier sale. Help a brother out. Jordan, this is Jordan. Anyone have suggestions on keeping local ads from decaying? I'm in the med spa niche and was getting leads for my clients. Sorry, this cuts off. At a good CPL, and they were converting at 30%. All of a sudden, well, for 30 days, all of a sudden my ads are tanking. CPL started to rise, and I'm at 0 leads for today. Jordan, two things. One is like totally unrelated to you, but there's election happening right now. I've been through, I don't know, like 4 elections in this agency, maybe 3. And every single time ads get worse during the election. So part of what you're experiencing is because of that. Secondly, though, this is just going to happen. Like there's very rarely where you're going to be able to run a campaign untouched forever because you have competitors who may copy you. There's different reasons why like you need to reinvent it or reinvigorate it. So I don't know, you're going to have to revamp your creatives from time to time and rework your offers. That's why I'm so big on learning the process of offers, because when you know that, it's a 10-minute issue. It's like, okay, let's figure out a new offer. Let's look at what everybody else is doing and how can I stand out from the noise. You make a new offer, you test it out, it works. Oh my God, the client's happy, and you're back in performance. As where if you only have one way of doing it, you just stumbled onto it accidentally, that can be catastrophic. So don't make it be catastrophic. Learn the skill, whether it's through us or anybody else. Read books. I got lots of books. I didn't like learn this offer making skill just totally randomly. It can be learned. Learn it, because it'll pay for yourself and your clients over and over and over again. So that's all the questions we got this week. Again, if you guys are interested in the referral campaign that will generate 5 figures for your clients. It's so easy. It's actually diabolically simple. Give me a holler on that. Otherwise, that's all I got for you guys this week. So may the force be with you.